Thanks for being with us, Potterheads. We've got a new chapter for Backward with Purpose, Part 1, Always and Always by Dead Woodpecker. And here we are, Chapter 19, Malfoys and Blacks.
Chapter 19, Malfoys and Blacks. Chapter text. You're sure that the Gaunt Shack is rebuilt exactly the way it was? Harry asked Dumbledore. And the enchantments are there as well? Yes, Harry, Dumbledore said. When he goes to check it, he will have no idea that it is lost. I don't understand why this is so important, Sirius said. Why go to so much effort to ensure that Voldemort doesn't know you've been attacking his Horcruxes? Because, Harry said, when the time comes to destroy him, I don't want him fighting desperately. Last time he unleashed fiend fire and killed almost every student in the castle because he thought that it would break us, stop us from fighting, and that we would give up if we knew exactly what lengths he was going to take to maintain his control. Sirius paled. He unleashed fiend fire on students. It wasn't a question. Harry nodded. It haunted him. The room of requirement was packed with people, and even though it had adjusted itself to the crowd, there was barely standing room. Harry and a Ravenclaw 7th year, named Nicholas Boot, had just returned from looking for the tiara. Harry nearly fell down the stairs when he saw that the remaining members of the Order of the Phoenix waited for him. The other professors, who had been with Harry when Snape rather dramatically exited the school, followed him. What's going on? Fred Weasley asked. We're fighting, Harry said. Voldemort knows I'm here. He knows that he hasn't got much time left. You've got to hold them off. I've got to search the castle. What's the plan, Harry? Arthur Weasley asked. Professor Flitwick has cast protections around Hogwarts, Harry said. But it won't hold the Death Eaters for long. Patrol around the school. Don't take them in an open fight. Not yet. Disillusion yourselves. What about the younger students? Hannah Longbottom asked. My little sisters are here. Neville put his arm around his wife. We're going to ask those students who are of age if they want to fight, Professor Flitwick said. Those who are too young will make their way out of the secret entrance that leads to the Hog's Head Inn. Harry looked around the room. Oliver Wood, Angelina Johnson, Katie Bell, and Alicia Spinnet stood in a tight circle near the twins. They would do perfectly. Any Quidditch players? Harry said loudly. He'd been out of school for nearly 4 years and didn't know who played for what house. But the young faces that made up Dumbledore's army, which still flourished despite the fact that the original members had long since graduated, told him that there was a good chance more than a few of them were at home on a broomstick. 10 others, besides Harry's old Quidditch team, separated themselves from the crowd. Listen, Harry said. I want you on brooms. You're to attack them from above. Dodge their spells the way you dodge bludgers. Disillusion yourselves and your broomsticks so they can't see you. We'll do it, Harry, Oliver said. His face was very pale. It's just another ugly team we're playing against. Harry nodded. Suddenly, he knew what to say. This is it, everyone. The big one, Fred said. The one we've been waiting for, George continued. Oliver managed to laugh. Harry pulled Fred and George aside once he saw that Oliver was barking orders. The younger ones listened raptly. Listen, I don't want you on the brooms. You know every secret passageway in and out of this school. Take some other students, and Neville, Hannah, and any other original member of Dumbledore's army you can find. Keep the Death Eaters from getting in that way. Does that include me as well? Ginny asked. No, Harry said shortly. I want you with me, Ron, and Hermione. So you can protect me? She smiled, but it was a bit dangerous. He had to choose his words carefully if he ever wanted to find himself in her bed again. No, Harry said. He bent and whispered in her ear. We're going to find another Horcrux tonight. I thought you might like to destroy it. She grinned. Good answer, Potter. Where are Ron and Hermione, by the way? Harry stood on his tiptoes and searched the crowd for them. Haven't seen them. They said something about a bathroom, Ginny said. Think they're releasing some tension before the fighting starts? Harry opened his mouth to laugh, but his scar hurt so badly that he feared that it would cleave his head in two. He opened his eyes and saw that he was standing in front of the gates that led to Hogwarts, murder in his heart. Rage gripped him. Potter had done the unthinkable, had found his Horcruxes. He must not be allowed to continue. He must be broken and defeated. Use fiend fire, he ordered his Death Eaters. Aim for where the students sleep. Kill them all. Bellatrix Lestrange laughed delightedly and lifted her wand before any of the others. Lord Voldemort looked at her approvingly. Of all his servants, she was the best. She never cowered from a task. She understood better than any of them that some things just needed to be done. No, he watched as the beautiful, destructive flames made their way to Gryffindor Tower and Ravenclaw Tower. The fire is like me, Voldemort thought. It purifies us from the unworthy. The screams began. No, no, Harry shouted. He was on the floor. Ginny held him down, her eyes wide with fright. No, fiend fire. He struggled to his feet, pushing past his old Quidditch team and knocking over Fred and George Weasley. He's attacking the students in their beds. But he knew that it was already too late. Are you all right, Harry? Sirius asked, concerned. Harry pulled himself away from the memory with effort, and was somewhat surprised to find that he was at Sirius' home in Godric's Hollow, and the summer between his 3rd and 4th year was waning. He was not at Hogwarts, and Voldemort had not just slaughtered an entire generation. Where is he? Harry smashed his hand down on the table. Damn it, how could he vanish off the face of the earth? He could quite easily, Dumbledore pointed out fairly. He can turn into a rat. As to where he is, I have no idea. I must admit that I'm hoping he is in Albania. I am too, Harry said. But that seems like an awful lot like luck, and we all know that if something can F up, it will. We don't even know if Wormtail is dead or alive, and I have no idea how we're going to pull of resurrecting Voldemort without him. Damn it. Harry got up and strode over to the window, looking out into the night. He ignored the fact that Dumbledore and Sirius were exchanging glances. He knew quite well that he had been in a beastly mood since the Dementor attack and Wormtail's strange escape. They did not, however, know the reason for this. He still had not told Ron and Ginny that he had lost his invisibility cloak. They had simply not had the time for it. 3rd year had ended with a host of things to talk about, and the other two were too distracted to notice. Harry knew that the longer he put off telling them, the angrier they would be. Listen, Harry said. I'm sorry. I'm exhausted. That spell, they had performed the Fidelius charm on Sirius' house here in Godric's Hollow and at Grimmauld Place. Took a lot out of me. It was true. Harry was secret keeper at Godric's Hollow, and he had felt the vastness of the trust Sirius was placing in him. It was an astonishingly good feeling, but it left Harry exhausted and vulnerable. Dumbledore, the secret keeper at Grimmauld Place again, did not show any sign of it. I'm going to bed. Harry made his way to the comfortable room that his godfather had prepared for him. Not for the first time, Harry wished that he had been able to forego the annual stay at the Dursleys. He'd spent 2 weeks with them, exactly 2 weeks, and then Sirius had come to take him away. Harry had had a great deal of fun seeing the expression on their faces when they saw the flying motorbike. He stumbled out of his robes and into his pajamas and fell into the bed that was just as warm and comfortable as the bed in Gryffindor Tower. He lay awake for a little while, but soon he drifted off to sleep. The secret burned gently inside his breast. He did not know if he dreamed before he saw inside Voldemort's mind. He only knew that one moment he was awake, and the next he was in an old, grand house. His heart beating fast, he remained a passive observer. As soon as the pain in his scar released him from his vision, Harry opened his eyes. He was tangled in his sheets, and when he tried to leap out of bed, he fell to the floor. He was both elated and confused at once, so he lay there like a turtle for a few moments, his mind racing. Pettigrew had been there with Voldemort. The old Muggle man, Harry felt a pang of sadness, had died. Voldemort was probably turning Nagini into a Horcrux at this moment. Once he'd gathered his thoughts, he leapt up and raced out of his room, bellowing Sirius at the top of his voice. He did not know if Sirius was still awake, did not know how long he had been asleep. By the quality of the night, it had not been very long. He came to a halt halfway down the stairs when he saw Sirius poke his head out of the kitchen, looking very guilty about something. "What is it, Harry?" he asked in a rather jovial voice. Dumbledore appeared behind him. Harry narrowed his eyes. "Tell me you haven't been discussing that completely ludicrous and stupid idea again." The other two remained silent. "We'll talk about that later," Harry warned. There was no way Sirius was going to break into Azkaban to get Rookwood. No way in hell. But they had more important things to discuss at the moment, and he was just as glad that Dumbledore was here. However, my scar hurt just now. Sirius and Dumbledore looked shocked. What? Sirius said blankly. Harry nodded. It was just the same as before. Wormtail found Voldemort, and now they're both back and plotting to kill me. Is it weird that I'm happy about that? You're saying, Dumbledore began, that despite our fears that everything had changed, Wormtail managed it after all? Don't ask me how it happened, Harry said. He looked over at Sirius. Have you still got those tickets to the World Cup? We're going to need them. The World Cup, Sirius said. He exchanged a weighty glance with Dumbledore. Haven't you, said that you didn't want to go? That was putting it mildly. When the tickets had arrived 2 weeks ago, the Ministry was still attempting to make amends with Sirius. Harry had rather vehemently expressed the fact that he absolutely did not want to be anywhere near the Weasleys, even if Ron and Ginny would be there. But matters had obviously changed. Bartemius Crouch Jr. would be there, would already be fighting the Imperius Curse, and would soon be meeting Lord Voldemort. I've changed my mind, Harry said shortly. The grounds on which over 100,000 wizards and witches from all over the world were gathered to watch the Quidditch World Cup was just as packed and loud as Harry had remembered. Peddlers selling omnioculars and other magical paraphernalia were doing a brisk trade as he and Sirius wandered over to their campsite. Harry felt a great sense of relief that they appeared to be going in a completely different direction from where he knew the Weasleys to be. Still, he was quite shocked when he realized who their neighbors were. Luna Lovegood and her father, Xenophilius, were merrily roasting what looked to be marshmallows, although Harry couldn't be sure, as they were about 10 times the size of any marshmallows he'd seen in the Muggle world, over a small fire. They appeared to be having a friendly argument, probably about whether or not Crumplehorn Snorkax could be found in Sweden as opposed to Norway. He grinned. Hey, Luna, he said loudly. Sirius, who had heard a great deal about his blonde friend, looked around with interest. Hi, Harry, she said brightly. Hi, Harry said to Xenophilius. You must be Luna's dad. I'm Harry Potter. The unkempt wizard stared at him, with the one eye that was not pointed inward at his nose, gaping. His eye flickered to Harry's scar, and Harry began to feel slightly uncomfortable under his close scrutiny. Ah, Xenophilius said. You look exactly how I thought you would. You've got the look of the Potters. I'm Sirius Black. Sirius extended his hand. Harry's godfather. It'll be quite the match, eh? He took in a rather extensive decorating. Everything from the tent to the cauldron was green. Rooting for Ireland, then? Yes, Luna said happily. How long have you been here, Harry? Just got in, Harry said easily. You? Oh, we've been here for a week, Xenophilius answered. Couldn't get any better tickets than that. I heard it's been a problem, Sirius said. We wouldn't have been able to get anything nearly this good if the Ministry weren't still feeling horribly guilty about throwing me into Azkaban without a trial. Yes, we heard, Xenophilius said. Horrible what they did. But I've always suspected, he said stoutly, that the Ministry is infected with Raxperts. They're small beings that cause the brain to numb and, though invisible, are able to do quite a bit of damage. I've got some charms to protect against them, but the heads of the various departments have refused my warnings time and again. Harry snorted, and Sirius barked with laughter. Luna and her dad did not look offended in the slightest. They spent the next several hours, after setting up their tent and returning to the Lovegoods with butterbeer and snacks, roundly abusing the Ministry. Sirius was so enthralled with the Raxpert theory that he invented proof of their existence, citing details of when he had been caught. When Xenophilius began to take notes, Harry suspected that the Quibbler would have another article about it in the next edition. Harry could not help but wonder what Ron and Ginny were up to at the moment. Was Hermione with them? He could almost see Mr. Weasley trying to light a match, his face alight with glee, while Hermione looked on, fondly exasperated. An image of the rune he had drawn last year during class flashed before his eyes, and he forced himself to turn to Luna and ask, do Crumplehorn Snorkax fly? All too soon, Harry, Sirius, and the Lovegoods had a part. The Lovegoods continued on to their seats in the middle of the stands, and Harry loitered a bit, pretending to watch a particularly loud peddler selling his wares. He was, in reality, bracing himself. He found it slightly ironic that he did not dread seeing the Malfoys at all. "The match is about to begin," Sirius pointed out finally. "Let's go." Harry nodded, and they made their way to the top box. Harry forced himself to go faster than he was wont to do. They were already there. Harry's eyes sought them out against his own volition, and the gang of redheads was arrayed in the bottom row. Ginny was seated next to Ron. Harry grinned, despite himself, when he saw Hermione next to him, sitting awfully close. The twins were laughing loudly with Bill and Charlie, while their mother and father spoke to Percy in quiet voices. Mrs. Weasley had obviously used the extra ticket provided by Harry's absence. Sirius Black, Cornelius Fudge, said jovially, "So glad you could make it. And you brought Harry Potter. How excellent, truly excellent." "Hello, Minister," Sirius said pleasantly. "Thank you for the tickets." "Anything at all." Fudge waved his arm expansively. Harry repressed the urge to roll his eyes. No reaction from the Weasleys yet. Fred and George were probably making too much noise for them to hear. Sirius looked around for empty seats. Harry nudged him and gestured toward 2 seats that were close to Winky the house elf and, under an invisibility cloak, Mr. Crouch's son. They also happened to be the only seats left and right next to Lucius Malfoy. "What are you doing here, Potter?" Draco Malfoy asked sullenly. "I've come to enjoy the game," Harry replied, very conscious of the fact that all the Weasleys had stiffened at the mention of his name. "Who'd you have to pay off to get here?" "Father was invited by the minister himself," Draco scowled. "Is that right?" Sirius placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. "So are we. Lucius," he added pleasantly. "Cousin Narcissa, you're looking well." Harry did not like the dangerous undercurrents, so he resolved to sit between Sirius and the Malfoys. Sirius knew who was sitting in the supposedly empty seat next to Winky as well as he did. "What are you talking about, cousin?" Draco asked. "My aunt and uncle," Sirius said very slowly, as though speaking to a rather stupid child. Harry suppressed the urge to cheer. "We're your grandmother and grandfather, which generally means that your mother and I are cousins." Speaking of family, Sirius added cheerfully to Narcissa, who appeared as though she were carved from a piece of wood. "Andromeda, remember her? Your sister? Is doing very well. Her husband is a pretty great guy. I'm afraid I can't say anything like that of Bella, though. Azkaban has made her even more insane. And to think we all used to be one big, happy black family." "To much inbreeding," Harry said sadly, unable to resist. With the drama playing out between the Malfoys and Sirius, he could almost ignore the fact that the Weasleys were staring at him. "We're lucky to have escaped the madness, Sissy," Sirius said. "Yes, quite," Narcissa said, eyes straight forward. "Sirius Black is actually our cousin," Draco said, aghast. Harry heard Ron snort. Deciding that he had let Sirius play long enough, Harry sat in the chair behind Hermione. "Hi, Harry," she said. She smiled, though she looked apprehensive. Harry understood completely. "Hi, Hermione," he said. "Sirius, this is my friend Hermione. From school. The two of you didn't actually get a chance to meet last time." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Black," Hermione said politely. "Call me Sirius," he told her. "Mr. Black was my father, and he was a right old bastard." Sirius," she was taken aback. Harry couldn't blame her. "Do you know the Malfoys as well?" Sirius asked. Harry groaned. Sirius had apparently taken it upon himself to distract Harry as much as possible. "My cousin Sissy, her husband Lucius, and their son Draco. We've met," Hermione said cautiously. "Well, I met Draco anyway." She didn't mention that she had met Lucius Malfoy 2 years prior, and he had been rude about her parents. "How has your summer been?" Harry asked her, before Sirius could say anything else. "I'm surprised to see you here," he lied. "I didn't know you were coming." "So am I," Draco said. "Did your Muggle parents pay them to take you here?" He was obviously not confident enough to call her a mudblood, but the insinuation was clear, as was his thinly veiled insult directed at the Weasleys and their ongoing struggle for money. "Boys," Arthur Weasley said when Fred and George stood up. They reluctantly sat back down. "Actually, Draco," Harry said, "I'm a bit surprised that you're here, too. After all the stories that Sirius has told me about your Aunt Bellatrix." He let his voice trail away. then added, I'm actually pretty proud of the fact that the ministry doesn't blame all of her relatives for being a murderous bitch. Obviously, they've come a long way since they threw my godfather in Azkaban without a trial or evidence. He chanced a glance at Ron. His shoulders were shaking with silent laughter. Then he fixed his eyes back on Draco. Come to think of it, Sirius stretched lazily in his chair. I was glad to hear that the two of you, Sissy, Lucius, were able to escape going to Azkaban. You must have been so pleased that they believed that you were under the Imperius curse. Yes, Lucius said. Harry saw that his brow was beaded with sweat. You should be sweating, Harry thought, grimly satisfied. And not because of Sirius. Barty Crouch is sitting right there, listening to every word. We were lucky that the ministry was wise enough to know that we were innocent of the crimes of which we were initially accused. Luckier than me, Sirius grinned. Oh well, the ministry figured it out in the end, thanks to Harry and his friends. At least he hadn't mentioned Ron and Ginny by name. The tension in the top box was so heavy that it felt like a physical weight on Harry's chest. Harry was proud of Sirius' indirect accusations toward the Malfoys, and he could see himself having quite the laugh over it with Ron and Ginny once they returned to school. But he had the feeling that it was about to get ugly. Haven't you heard Cousin Sirius? Draco's blue eyes were alive with malice. Harry saw Ron straighten up rather abruptly. He didn't dare look at the other Weasleys, but the tension had grown even greater. He drew his wand, but kept it against his leg. Shut up, Malfoy, Harry said quietly. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath, mindful of the fact that they were all currently sitting in plain view of the highest officials in the Ministry of Magic. Hermione squeaked. Draco was apparently too stupid to realize this. Or perhaps he was betting on the fact that he was untouchable. He doesn't know. Potter, he said gleefully. They're not his friends any longer. We all thought that Potter and Ron Weasley were close, but it turns out that Potter and the Weasley girl were fooling us all. I heard that. His voice abruptly cut off. His ugly smirk faded off his face once he realized that he'd been silenced. He finally realized that he was surrounded by people with wands who had every interest in hexing him in the next week. And judging by the look on all the Weasleys' faces, they were a word away from not caring the slightest that the minister was around. Control your son, he told Lucius Malfoy coldly. You just did underage magic, Lucius pointed out, though he had paled considerably. Right in front of the Minister of Magic. How are you in any position to make threats? Actually, I'm the one that silenced Draco, Sirius said easily. And I don't need to make threats, Harry said. I'm disappointed in you, Sissy, Sirius continued. His tone was still pleasant. You've managed to raise a very stupid son. I only hope it doesn't get him into trouble one day. My son is not. Back off, Harry said. He and Lucius Malfoy stared at each other for a long, intense moment. Harry was surprised to find that he had remained seated. He had better control of himself than he thought. He counted it as a good thing that he did not have his wand pointed directly at Lucius Malfoy's head. Malfoy broke the contact first, and Harry felt a thrill. He'd seen a bit of fear in the Death Eater's eyes. Lucius had learned a little early this time that Harry did not like to be messed with. Still, he felt an immense sense of relief when Ludo Bagman announced the beginning of the game. Don't think this is over, Potter, Lucius growled softly several minutes later. One more word, Harry whispered, and I'll tell everyone in this box that you were the one to plant the diary on Ginny Weasley. You might wriggle out of it with the minister, but the Weasleys already hate you and your son almost as much as they hate me. I wouldn't push them. You're just lucky that the older Weasleys were able to control their sons. Well, wasn't that interesting? Sirius said. The game was over, and so was the Quidditch match. As they approached their tent, Harry's body began to relax. For the most part, I had quite a lot of fun, Sirius admitted. The match was pretty exciting, too. You were brilliant, Harry said, grinning. Did you see the looks on their faces? Narcissa was trembling. She was so afraid of what you would say next. Did you take the silencing charm off Draco? Sirius shrugged. How could I possibly remember such a small detail like that? Harry laughed. Sometimes I see a lot of your father in you, Sirius said. Not always. You're just as much like Lily. But I think James would have been very proud of you tonight. Not only did you make a Death Eater back off, but you did it right under the minister's nose. Do you really think he'd be proud of me? Harry asked. Despite everything, he felt like he actually was 14 years old for a moment. That's a silly question, Sirius told him. Your dad was a bit arrogant, and he'd be almost intolerable knowing that he had a son like you. Harry felt warmth spread from his toes to his fingers, as if he had just consumed large quantities of chocolate after meeting a Dementor or two. He'd started to wonder if his parents would worry about how hard he'd become after seeing nearly everyone he loved die. I'm going to see them, you know, Harry said. He lowered his voice, even though he rather doubted that anyone could hear them over the din the Irish were making. What do you mean? Sirius asked, perplexed. How could you see them? Priori incanitum, Harry said. They're going to come out of his wand. It won't really be them. Just shades. But they'll be able to talk and everything. I'm not sure if I'm really looking forward to it, or if I'm dreading it. Understandable. Sirius threw his arm over Harry's shoulders. I would try not to worry about it too much, Harry. I know you're going to, but there are a lot of things that are going to happen between now and then. And I want you to promise me something. What? Harry asked. Try to let loose a little, Sirius said. Have fun with your friends. You've been given an amazing chance to build new memories with them. There's not much I wouldn't give to have another 7 years at Hogwarts with your father, mother, and Moony. He added hastily when he saw the look on Harry's face, that I'm going to do what you did. Too much would go wrong. I'm afraid that too much has already gone wrong here, Harry confessed after a moment. What if I've already screwed something up? Wormtail, it's a pretty wild fluke that he's where he's supposed to be. I get chills just thinking about how close we were to losing everything. And about my friends. He paused. Yes, Sirius said. Harry took a deep breath. I'm going to tell Neville and Hermione what's going on as soon as the Goblet of Fire is lit, the night before my name comes out of it. I don't think it's wrong to think that I might lose them. We have been deceiving them for 3 years. I don't think you understand it from our perspective, Sirius said quietly. What you and Ron and Ginny have done. I had never heard of that kind of bravery and that kind of love. I know what you three had to go through to get back here. When our only other choice was to stay and live out the rest of our lives alone, it was the easiest decision in the world, Harry said. 2 surprises awaited Harry that night. The first surprise happened when they finally made it to their tent and saw who had joined Luna and her father. Ron, Ginny, and Hermione sat around the campfire, flushed with laughter. Harry stood in the shadows for a moment, just watching them, drinking them in. Harry, Hermione said. She was shocked to see him once he'd stepped toward him. Hello again, he beamed. How'd you get away? Mom and Dad were a bit flustered, Ron said. Luna found us after the match and told them that her dad wanted to give them a bit of a break. Once they'd made him promise to keep us out of trouble, Ginny added, they agreed readily enough. It helped that the Malfoys are staying near us, Ron said. I think they wanted us as far away from them as possible. Zeno, Sirius greeted the older man with exuberance, even though he had just met the man today. Should we finish our interview? Give the kids a bit of privacy? I don't know. We'll be right over there, Sirius said. Nothing will happen to them. I'll make sure of that. Hermione looked extremely confused. Luna, did you know that Harry was staying right next to you? Yes, Luna said. That's why I didn't tell the Weasleys. And a good thing, too, Ron rolled his eyes. He stood up from a log that had been enchanted to be a most comfortable chair. Harry hugged him. He did this partly because he was happy to see his friend without Mr. and Mrs. Weasley or his brothers hovering over him, and partly because he had to tell him something. Scar hurt. Wormtail with Voldemort, Harry murmured. Ron jerked back. Harry shrugged. Hey, Ginny, he said. She had grown even more beautiful than the last he'd seen her, not counting the little glimpses he'd had of her during the World Cup. The firelight played in her hair. Hey, Harry, she said. Are you sure this is wise? Hermione asked. Not that I don't like. It's good to have you here, Harry. But if the Weasleys saw us... They won't, Ron said comfortably. He leaned down and whispered something. Harry thought he might know what. In Ginny's ear. His suspicions were confirmed when she sat up, instantly alert. Harry gave her a very small nod. Don't worry, Hermione, Luna said. No one can separate Arthur, Guinevere, and Lancelot. Thank you, Luna, Hermione said waspishly. But the Weasleys were very upset today. Ron laughed. I forgot we didn't tell you yet. It isn't funny, Ron. Hermione said, I thought people were going to start killing each other. Sirius Black took the Malfoys down several pegs, Ginny explained. And then Harry took them down all the way. All four quickly explained what had happened in the top box before the match began. You should have seen the look on Lucius Malfoy's face, Ron chortled. He was dead afraid of Harry and Sirius. He didn't say anything at all and left even before we did. That doesn't change the fact that your family was just as angry with Harry as they were with the Malfoys, Hermione said. They think you told everyone about, you know. Stupid of them, Ginny said sourly. Let me guess, Harry said. The twins didn't automatically confess that they'd told everyone about it in their quest to make me a pariah? No, Ron said shortly. Anything else? Harry asked. Hermione shook her head. We came up on Luna and her dad right after that. Let's change the subject, Ginny said suddenly. She had obviously caught the drift of Harry's quickly turning mood. It's been so long since we've all had a conversation together. Let's not ruin it. Harry climbed into the tent he was sharing with Sirius much later that evening after they had walked Ron, Ginny, and Hermione back to the Weasleys' camp with Zeno and Luna. He and Sirius had let them go on the last little bit without them. He'd done his best to create one of those bright moments Sirius had spoken of earlier. He hadn't been able to truly relax, however, worried as he had been about the Death Eaters attacking the Muggles again. He kept alert, but he needn't have worried. Harry awoke the next morning to discover that all had been quiet throughout the night. No Death Eaters having a reunion. No dark mark in the sky, terrifying everyone out of their wits. The second surprise. His most pressing worry for the moment was whether or not. Harry guessed not, as she had only grown more suspicious in the last few months. What had happened in the top box had only fanned her desire to uncover their secret. Hermione would be willing to wait another 2 months for Harry's, Ron's, and Ginny's confession.